for a new episode of You and the Law Podcast, the one and only law enforcement podcast that's tackling critical policing and social justice issues and provides insights into the daily realities of policing with your host, Chief Virgil Green.
I want to welcome everybody to another episode of You and the Law Podcast. This is You and the Law Podcast, where clarity matters, facts matters, and the law matters. And tonight's episode, we're going to be addressing the developing and deeply serious matter in the ongoing investigation into the reported shooting incident that took place on Brown University on Saturday. As details continue to emerge, questions are being raised, not just about what happened, but about campus safety. And so in these moments like these, emotions run high, information moves fast, and speculations can outpace facts. Our goal today is not to dramatize the situation, but to examine what we know and what happened and what remains under investigations. And tonight I've got on a guest who is no stranger to You and the Law Podcast, and he is actually a retired lieutenant with the Providence Police Department. Join me and welcome Sean Carroll back to You and the Law Podcast.
Good night, Chief. How are you?
Hey, sir, I'm doing good.
And this is the first time, by the way, that my life-size or to scale model Providence Police Cruiser comes in handy.
Yeah, exactly, man. I have seen that all over the news, and actually here we are seeing the scaled down version of a Providence Cruiser behind you.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, Sean, and when I reached out to you, when this happened. So let me ask you this question: when this happened, what was your first thoughts?
My first thought was, how bad is it really? Because usually whatever the first report you get is not completely accurate. So my concern, especially in a situation like that, because typically in an active shooter situation, obviously everybody scatters, they're running. So a lot of times, unless somebody is really seriously injured or incapacitated, a lot of people might get hit and keep running. Some may not. And in this particular case, it happened with one individual, didn't even realize that they were hit just because of the adrenaline dump. So that was my first concern. And then the second one, obviously, is if we don't, my immediate concern, obviously, besides the victims, was, I know almost every one of these guys and girls that are going there, and I've worked with them, they've worked for me. So that was my next concern, is that, I don't want someone to get hurt, obviously, if there's some type of a shootout or a confrontation. And then after that, once the victims are squared away and the good guys are okay, then it's solve the crime and find the bad guy. It seems like we're getting close. Yeah,
Sean. So, before we get too far into the podcast, I want to show a clip from what took place on Saturday on the campus of Rhode Island. And once we watch this here, then on the other side of it, then we'll talk about what this is right before the Christmas holiday season. So many students, everybody's getting ready to go home for Christmas, and something like this here happens, and it just shocks everybody. So we're gonna watch this news clip from a local station there in Providence, and we'll talk about what took place after we watch this video.
Sounds good.
Horrible.
Yeah.
No words.
It's hard to describe with words what happened tonight.
Public safety locked the doors that we could not lock, and then we locked ourselves in.
It just feels really surreal.
Now at 11, parents.
Well, I guess we don't have video. I mean, we have video, but no audio. Can you hear me?
I could hear it on my end.
Yeah. So hold on just a second, Sean. Something just happened with some equipment failure here, where I can hear you, but now you can't hear me. So give me a second here to try to figure out what's going on. And those who are tuned in and watching, this is what happens when you've got live podcasts. So hold on just a second. We'll be right back.
No words. It's horrible. No words.
It's
Horrible. No words.
it's hard to describe with words what happened tonight.
Public safety locked the doors that we could not lock, and then we locked ourselves in.
It just feels really
Horrible. No words.
It's hard to describe with words what happened tonight.
Public safety locked the doors that we could not lock, and then we locked ourselves in.
it just feels really surreal.
Now at 11, parents, staff members, and students all reacting to the mass shooting at Brown University that killed 2 and injured at least 9 others. The school remains on lockdown as the search for the gunman continues late into the night. The shooting happened just days before winter break, and final exams are now canceled for tomorrow.
And still at this hour, it is a very active scene. More than 400 law enforcement officers are out there right now, and we are seeing new images of the person police are looking for.
In Providence, Rhode Island, a massive manhunt. Police releasing this security camera video of the person believed to be the shooter at Brown University. It shows what appears to be a man dressed in black leaving the area.
We are combing through lots of video, both on campus, through private cameras.
At 4:22 this afternoon, Brown University with this warning for its community. There's an active shooter near Boris and Holly Engineering. Lock doors, silence phones, and stay hidden until further notice. A second alert came less than 30 minutes later. Continue to shelter at this time. One suspect in custody. But then shortly after sending this message, police do not have a suspect in custody and continue to search.
I'm at 355 Brook Street. Rescue 1 just transported 1 victim from 355 Brook.
Rescue 1 victim transported from 355 Brook.
I also received a notification that they want everyone to get out of the building so that they can search every corner of the building to hunt for the shooter.
The shooting happened in a first-floor classroom. The outer doors of the building were open because exams were taking place.
My daughter was texting me, Dad, there's shooting is happening outside, and we are scared, and we are in a higher floor, and people are banging on the doors.
At first, I just thought it was something like way off campus or something like, and then when I found out it was directly next to me, just like it's still hard to grasp.
Tonight, there are more than 400 law enforcement officers searching for the gunman, and President Trump has reached out to the governor of Rhode Island, offering his support.
I just received a call from the president expressing the same type of urgency and the same type of offers to respond to us in a way that we, one, keep people safe, but also, two, we're going to make sure that we catch the individual that brought so much suffering to so many people.
We're going to keep keeping a very close eye on this breaking news development in the manhunt for the shooter. For alerts sent straight to your phone, make sure to download our NBCLA app. Again, the campus remains under lockdown right now, and classes are canceled for tomorrow.
Well, Sean, this is something that probably just caught everybody off guard.
Sure.
Right before, I just said that before we watched this, right before the holiday season, nobody ever thought anything like this here would happen. And the unfortunate thing did happen at the campus of Brown University. And so this is a campus that you are very familiar with, Sean. So, kind of walk us through, where this campus is located. Because one of the things I didn't know until this happened is that the university is embedded in a neighborhood.
Correct.
In Providence.
Right. Yeah. So this is a fairly, I don't want to say unique, but it's to your point, Chief, it's not what people think. They think of a college campus that is all kind of walled in and all the buildings are all put together. So Brown University is on the east side of Providence. Providence obviously is the capital city of the state of Rhode Island. And I believe it's easily one of the oldest schools in the country, founded by obviously the Brown family way back when. Everybody understands, the background of Brown. It's an Ivy League school. And so it kind of spread out all over the east side of the city. And that's what makes it fairly unique, at least in this particular case. So there's not there are buildings that are kind of grouped together in places, but essentially their campus stretches, I think it's about 2 miles from one end of the city. And it kind of goes north to south, all on the eastern edge of the city. And as you probably have seen, if you've noticed some of those videos, it's a fairly well-to-do part of the city. It's to be plain, that's where the more affluent people live. So what makes it even more unique is because the city is so old, going back to the 1600s, a lot of this stuff, the construction was built off of the old footprint. So on that particular side of the city, there are tons of streets that are barely wide enough for one vehicle. There are houses that are, I remember one that literally the roof of one was over the other. They were so close together because this is like hundreds of years of history that is all coming kind of full circle. So when they talk about the suspect in this particular case not necessarily being on campus or on the edge of campus, what they're saying is, if you walk out of that Barris and Holly engineering building where the incident occurred and you go across the street, technically you're off campus and now you're in the city. So if anybody has seen like that map that showed the path that the suspect had taken prior to the incident, and in a lot of those videos, you'll see this is essentially a residential neighborhood. And there are commercial businesses and office spaces all kind of intermingled throughout all of these things. So it might be a Brown University built school building, and then it might be a couple blocks before another one. And as you described, Chief, in this particular time of year, that area is extremely busy. It's the Christmas season. There's tons of shopping. That particular area is very, very high traffic, foot end vehicular traffic for shopping. There's restaurants, bars, all the types of things that you would typically find, in a capital city and around a college campus. So when I first heard it, and I heard, the location, and then I saw the videos and the pictures, it was a little hard for me to. I'm like, okay, there's going to be a bunch of videos because it's the capital city, it's Brown University. I've heard different numbers from people, anywhere from 800 to 1,200 cameras on campus. And then the first thing that we see after the incident occurs, I was joking with a few of my former coworkers that it was like a Bigfoot photo. It was just this blob, very difficult to discern any detail from a distance and with obviously an older camera. So I thought for sure that there would have been more video coming up more quickly. And, as has been mentioned in some of the I'll call them politely private detectives that have shown up on social media, and there are lots of them over there now, all with their own theories. They have exposed some of the things that I don't know that the investigators necessarily would have wanted out there, especially that. But I think there was obviously a lot going on behind the scenes, that certainly helped push the investigation forward. And, when I think about when you were showing the clip and you had asked that earlier question of some of my concerns, once we realized that it wasn't going to be probably wrapped up in the first few hours, then they had that first person of interest and that person was released. And now we're into day 2. The next thing that I was thinking about and is absolutely a thing, especially if you watch any of the press conferences, is how do we coordinate all these agencies? You have, I think it was like 10 or 11 federal agencies. You have the Rhode Island State Police. You have the Providence Police. And even though they weren't mentioned very much in there, you also have the Brown University Police. They have their own police department that is on campus. The thing that really worked out well is a majority of the Brown University police officers are actually retired Providence cops. So they were familiar with the area. They had a really good feel for what was going on. But to your point, this type of thing doesn't happen over there. It's not a violent area. There's, again, because there's always a high police presence. There's always tons of people around. So it's not a type of place where anything violent happens, particularly something like this. So, when the first few hours went by and I didn't hear anything, I didn't see any particular videos or hear any mention of evidence that would be particularly damning or something that could tie a particular suspect to the scene. I didn't see that. And, obviously, like we said, the photos were not that great and certainly very difficult to make out certain details. And now, obviously, over the last few days, they've enhanced them. They've come up with a lot of other video. And that was the other issue. So as I had mentioned, this is kind of a rich people area. So a lot of the people that live in that area, they live wherever they live during the wintertime, and a lot of them are snowbirds. So they'll go to Florida or they'll go, wherever. They'll go down in the Caribbean, down near me, where I am in St. Thomas. But yeah, so that was another thing, was they were trying to figure out, all right, how do we get a hold of these people? Get them on the phone, then have them access their video. And so it was a really tedious process. And don't forget, this is a very densely populated area. The city of Providence has probably close to 200,000 residents. And that's not including when there are events. I know there had been a basketball game at Brown that was letting out right around the same time that this event occurred. There were probably other events going on. It's, again, it's Capital City. It's a Saturday, a couple weeks before Christmas. So there's tons and tons of things going on. There's people everywhere. So, at that point, once they had gotten through those first few hours and everybody, was at least okay, because I even had a few of my relatives that work at Brown, that were texting, and they're like, we're seeing their messages later that they were hiding for like 6, 7, 8 hours. People didn't know, they're hearing people. They don't know if it's the police. They don't know if it's the bad guy. They're afraid to leave. They don't know what to do. They're getting different messaging depending on what they're seeing. Some people are texting. The alert went off, and there was all kinds of confusion, as there normally is in a situation like this. And that it made it a lot more complicated, because now you got people that are going to the bathroom in buckets because they're terrified to leave the closet or the room that they're in. And this particular building is a large building. It's a really big building. I forget how many floors. I want to say it's like 8, 10 floors, something like that. So there's rooms everywhere. There's a lot of space. And obviously, once you secure the scene, then the next thing becomes, okay, we have to expand this scene and try to find this person. So between the initial response, you've got Brown University Police, you've got Providence Police, and then obviously once everyone realized what was going on, we had just about every community in the state, some from almost an hour away, that came to assist. Now that sounds great, but what do you do when you get there? Now it's, are their radios compatible on the same frequencies? How do you communicate with them? How do you talk to them? How do you let them know what we need them to do? So that's the initial part. Then it's figure out how wide the scene needs to be, rescue all the people, lift the order once you feel relatively safe that that's going to be okay. This is a huge incident in a large area, and it's super complicated. It's not like some of these incidents we see in a building or a school where it's contained to that one few rooms or that one facility. This is a huge thing that was spread out over city blocks with hundreds and hundreds of residences. Again, these places are crammed together. There's all kinds of tight spaces everywhere. So this was a really, really big deal. And as much as the initial response and the investigation took a lot of heat, and I get why some of it was there. But again, from having been involved with nothing like this, but in other serious incidents that involved multi-agency coordination, that's a really big deal. And it sounds easy, but it's complicated, because it's complicated even when you're trying to all do the right thing. The other factor, as you know well, is now you're adding in the element of politics. You're adding in the element of, we'll say certain people have agendas, right? Because now you have the mayor involved, you have the governor involved, you have the attorney general involved, all elected officials, and all the other police chiefs and executives from Brown, the president of Brown, and so on and so on. So that's a lot of people to coordinate with. The other part that really didn't get a lot of attention, that most people wouldn't know if you weren't familiar with the city, is almost intertwined with the Brown University campus is the campus for Rhode Island School of Design. We call it RISD. That's a very high-end art focused college, and they're also intertwined. We have Providence Colleges there. We have the University of Rhode Island. We have Johnson and Wales, all right around that immediate area. So there's a ton of stuff going on, and that's a lot to manage. So I got to tell you, and I can only begin to imagine what the tip line was fielding as far as phone calls and tips, because, and of course they're duty bound to run every one of those down. So I know that they had guys going to Boston, they had guys going to Connecticut, coordinating with other agencies and other municipalities. And that's a lot. And then you have to run down every single one. And ultimately, again, after the first day or so went by, I could clearly tell by talking to some of my former coworkers that were directly involved that this is the grunt work. Now it's going door to door. And again, so a lot of other things that people don't consider. It's New England, right? It's wintertime. Even though I'm spoiled here in the Virgin Islands and the Caribbean, it's 85 degrees out. It's not there. And almost immediately after that incident, there was a couple inches of snowfall. So now on top of everything else that's going on, now you have that confounding variable of we've got to deal with snow, because obviously that has a huge impact on evidence recovery. There are plows out there, people are shoveling. So if there is evidence, now it's either covered where it can't be seen, it could be contaminated in some way, or potentially lost just because somebody didn't know that it was even there in the first place. So there are a lot of moving parts to something like this. In the meantime, you also have all the executives that are trying to manage the media, they're absolutely relentless. On top of all that, then they have people making all these fake videos with the AI, and and that obviously leads to even more. Some people were calling in tips, thinking they had found something of a video they saw when it was actually just somebody making a fake video. So all of those things make this a lot harder than it already is. And but knowing those guys, and I know almost all of them personally, I've worked with them. They're amazing cops. They're great investigators, and I had no doubt they have wrapped up during. Hope I didn't lose you, Chief. All right. Well, I believe my man Miguel is on here. Miguel, if you're on here, hold on one second, everybody.